The Ukrainian colleagues wanted to relate to you today is probably the most dramatic environmental crime happening, the consequences of most dramatic environmental crime that happened during the Russian invasion in Ukraine, namely the consequences of the destruction of Kakhovka Dam. It's Ukrainian Nature Conservation Group, which is a union of scientists and practitioners in conservation, doing conservation and support of conservation institutions in Ukraine, and Ukraine War Environmental Consequences War Group, which I am a part of, which is a specialized analytical media created to analyze and broadcast the environmental problems and solutions to these problems, which happen as a result of this war. And this episode is the most dramatic episode we have so far, with major consequences. If we're talking about the different regions affected by the consequences of the blast, then first of all, it's the actual green zone of the reservoir, which was emptied, about which I will talk most today. It is this pink and blue zone of the area which was temporarily flooded by artificial flood, with a lot of destruction and inundation of soils, and the area of the sea, which was partly desalinated, polluted by sediments and organic elements for a while. But I will concentrate on the green area today, although you have to look at it holistically. Just a week or two after the blast happened, we were absolutely astonished by what we see on satellite images. Because on one hand, we realized that it's a huge wasteland with hectares of decaying mussels and piles of dead fish. But on the other hand, this was the Great Lukh, the great floodplain forest area of Ukraine, area of tremendous historic and natural value, retaining all its rivulets, ponds, islands, and just coming up from under the water as if it was submerged yesterday, but it is barren. And no one knows what comes next. For example, I was for weeks propagating the likelihood of the dust storms from this surface. Fortunately, never happened. And I'm just infamous for spraying this as a real, but it could be a real danger. We evaded, but it didn't happen by chance. But of course, different stakeholders and different entities had very different view of what to do next. Ukrainian Hydroelectric Company was recruiting the support of European entities and international banks to rebuild the dam, the sooner the better. Occupying Russian forces, which occupied the other side of the reservoir, were of the same opinion, but they stressed the necessity to supply water again, including to many areas, including Crimea, which was supplied by Kakhovka Reservoir, while the government of Ukraine was more reserved. It gave some money to the hydropower entities to plan future revival of the hydropower plant and intermediate measures to improve functioning of others. It gave a lot of attention to rebuilding water supply to the cities and towns deprived of water supply as a result of the blast. And it enacted 15-year prohibition for use of lands on the bottom of the reservoir, so it's not haphazardly taken by various actors for use as soon as it's possible due to war circumstances. Ukraine's parliament at the same time is working on a law that allows creation protected areas in those areas. We as a group with many allies are exploring feasibility of restoration of Lower Dnipro ecosystems and how to make this a sustainable socioeconomic act, not only a sustainable ecosystem restoration act. Ecosystem restoration, as a matter of fact, goes right now widely and rapidly without any particular assistance. It's more perceptions that and future plans that should be managed seriously. Speaking, besides us, there are many other actors who think differently. For example, a good number of people are thinking about how to build a better dam in the same place. And they want to build 60, 70 kilometer long dike to make a deeper reservoir and to free shallows for other uses. The author of this article in Science vaguely says that it's for steppe restoration, while many like-minded people very clearly say that it could be used well for agriculture or to breed fish. Anyway, you should know that it's 2,000 square, 2,000 square kilometers. So it's a big stake because what has been what had happened, it's another 250 kilometers of the river and 2,200 kilometers of the floodplain area, which has been released by the dewatering. What we believe that there means to restore many and improve actually many socioeconomic functions through alternative, more modern means. And ongoing war makes the option of restoring the dam a very remote prospect. Therefore, government and other actors are trying to restore many functions now, and actually water supply being restored now by these water pipes shown on the pictures is of better quality than one which was available from very shallow blooming reservoir. And for example, restoring of the decentralized energy systems is seen as more promising right now under rocket attacks than restoring centralized power plants, which could be again attacked. And you need 2% of this reservoir bottom to restore the full capacity of Kakhovka hydropower station, by the way, by solar power. So those trends make us believe that there is a basis for a consensus for ecosystem restoration and better restoration of socioeconomic functions, but it requires to be built over the next several years, not to lose this opportunity, because the drive to restore what you had before is always very powerful. So when we're thinking from ecosystem perspective, or what was there before the reservoir, there are some data for last several centuries, and my colleagues from Ukrainian Nature Conservation Group more or less calculated what was the composition of the bottoming of the floodplain area, which was under reservoir right before the reservoir was created, which had surprisingly little forest, which we believe is due to active livestock farming and haying. As we see, that's what we see in the aerial photos from the 40s, where there was no dam. But now we see that all this area is subject to active restoration of willow and poplar forests, and that likely before industrial livestock farming, there was more forest element in the floodplains. However, it remains to be seen. But what is amazing is the speed. So this is the difference. This happened in 3 months, first 3 months after, and now it's 3 meters high. And the botanists who got access to the place and managed to do standard monitoring plots, and they had 3 expeditions there. They say that the trend is an increasing diversity of species and decreasing share of invasive species, which is very good. At the same time, animal surveys are almost impossible. They just require more time than you can afford not being targeted from the other side, because a standard geobotanical plot needs minutes and animal observations needs hours. Nevertheless, thanks to fisheries inspection, it's documented that Danube sturgeons already came all the way to the upper part of former reservoir to spawn which shows the restoration of functional migratory routes, and some other species of fish also are appearing. But you wouldn't have a floodplain restoration if you do not secure the floods. Yep. And you have 5 dams upstream with mighty reservoirs. And therefore, we are trying to now start convincing the European banks, development banks, which are funding the modernization and recovery of these hydropower plants, that they should incorporate environmental flows. And we need all support from European colleagues who are accustomed with dealing with EBRD and AIB, how to make them actually incorporate that, because by European laws they have to. But they are so far they are looking positively, but trying to evade substantive conversation. And of course, the main question is how you get public support for all that, and how you convince decision makers. It's on one hand very difficult due to massive number of differently minded stakeholders and uncertainties of the outcome of the war. But at the same time, within a year, the fact of the self-restoration became a very good news due to a lot of educational efforts by scientists and conservationists. And now it's seen by media and larger society as a rare good news in the midst of war. And the government, in this case, the high-level international panel for the worst environmental consequences, which is managed from the presidential office, issued a statement which shows that they are open to consider various scenarios for this area, and it should be thoroughly assessed. It's no longer just rebuild the dam. But it's not the victory, it's just the beginning of the change in society's perception. And really, the fate of this depends on how well we use the process of European integration and accession and all European laws to support the case and bring benefits associated to that to the population, which is affected by this catastrophe, to make them allies and to make the restoration of the Lower Dnipro ecosystem from the Dnieper all the way to the sea, a priority of accession and Ukraine's revival. Therefore, we believe it's a great chance for Europe, because we don't see any other opportunity in European subcontinent to restore 250 kilometers of one of major rivers with 2,000 square kilometers of floodplain. It's out of question in most other European countries. That here it's a real, living, happening opportunity. So we invite everyone interested to join efforts for restoration of Lower Dnipro ecosystem. Thank you for attention.
Thank you so much, Eugene. Really interesting questions.
The monitor counter using camera tracks and drones. You can set up in minutes.
Yeah, thank you for advice. Yeah, when we hear drones, we have very different private use of drones prohibited in the war zone. Therefore, unfortunately, camera traps probably, I don't know. But drones, unfortunately, in current situation, as long as battle line is in the middle of the former reservoir, drones are likely out of question.
If you have here, you say join our efforts for the restoration, and my question is, how can we, as nature conservation organizations from other countries, get involved, and how can we help?
We need support in a sense that we, first of all, are poorly informed about opportunities to convince European decision makers. All European countries, support the Ukraine's revival. Not for all of them or for most of them. This is not an issue. And we lack literacy in how to use European processes and how to structure the program to basically make it interesting to European actors. Also, many elements of this restoration are well-known routines for many organizations who've done restoration elsewhere, and we encounter such a case first time in our lives. I understand that no one had case of this size, but but restoration of willow forest and the floodplain of former water body, it's probably something that someone has already experienced and understand the succession scenario. So there is a lot of sort of even restoration experience which is relevant. But most of what we need is knowledge of European laws, procedures, and access to European decision makers by European scientists, like-minded European NGOs, and other actors who can support it. And of course, we are ready to communicate. I would be very happy to exchange the addresses so that we can sustain communication, and we hope to create some coalition for Kakhovka, which would have divided roles and which have tentacles in different countries, which are important for decision making in Europe.
Brilliant. I think I'm sure Eugene will be around to talk later.
Yeah, I'm very eager to talk about it and answer any questions. If I can, because as you understand, it's sometimes there are questions that.
There's a gentleman here who wants to talk to you later. Thank you so much, Eugene.